Afternoon, peeps. Good afternoon, everyone. A rare afternoon day of filming because I have today off, which is nice. So I thought, you know what? Let's get to the studio and let's talk about Mr. CONOR BENN, one of the fighters that I'm really interested to see how 2022 plays out. Like, will he end 2022 really taking a step up to world level? He'll hope so. I mean, if you ask CONOR BENN, he'd want to end 2022 potentially with a world title shot. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a case of just getting to world level and having that real world level fight at the back end of 2022. That's what I think. So they should look at an opponent that they think is a like rubber stamp top 7 or 8 at welterweight, and that should be the end goal for 2022. That's who CONOR BENN should be fighting in December. Before that, you've got to look at 2 opponents to get you there. That's what I think. Eddie Hearn sat down with Kugan Cassius, I think it was yesterday, and they spoke for about an hour. I love those things, by the way. I think we take them for granted. I think they're really, really good. Kugan has a way of getting things out of Eddie Hearn. And Eddie Hearn, I feel like, just feels comfortable with Kugan, so he says things. He just says, sometimes he says things that he maybe shouldn't say, but he just says it, and I think they're always fascinating. We'll talk about some other stuff he said on the interview, but I want to focus, as I said, on CONOR BENN, just because he's almost my fighter to watch in 2022, because I have no idea how this is going to play out. Absolutely no idea. I think he's improving. Every time I see him, I think he's getting better. I think 2021 was a good year for him in terms of fighting maybe faded champions or faded former world level guys. But regardless, it was 3 fights and 3 wins. Vargas, Cambosos, probably Granados, and Algieri. And the way in which he finished Algieri, I was like, okay, 2022 could be very, very interesting. Just like, if that went points, and, and he had to come through some sort of adversity, then I guess you almost have to pump the brakes a little bit. The way in which it was comfortable and then to kind of put Algieri to sleep like that, there might be something there. And it's taken me a while to think that with Conor, because I, like a lot of people, was like, nah, it's not going to be there. And when he steps up to world level, he's going to get embarrassed, or maybe even European level. I think I've changed my mind in it a little bit. And when I say a little bit, because I still don't know what's going to happen when he goes to world level. But European level, I'm very, very confident that CONOR BENN could come through European level. Very, very confident. So look, anyway, Eddie Hearn in that interview mentioned 2 names as potential opponents for CONOR BENN in April. So CONOR BENN will fight again in April. He mentioned Maurice Hooker, former champion at 140 pounds, coming off that loss to Virgil Ortiz. Good fight, firefight, and then hurt his hand. Was on his way to getting stopped, potentially put down hard, but the fight was off because of a hand. And Robert Guerrero, former world champion, hasn't really done much. It's coming off a win against Victor Ortiz, which I thought was actually quite a good fight. The first 4 or 5 rounds was good, and then it started to get really, really bad. Both guys way beyond their best, right? So those are the 2 names he's mentioned. So it's going to be one of those 2 guys. Immediately, I want it to be Maurice Hooker. That's the name. And I mentioned Maurice Hooker as a potential opponent. In fact, he mentioned 3 names. He mentioned Adrian Broner as well. Let's quickly touch on the Broner one. He said that Broner wants a fight before he wants to fight CONOR BENN. So look, it means they've had some form of discussions, which is interesting. I'm not quite sure Broner's still aligned to Al Heyman, managed by Al Heyman, but the fact that Eddie's had a discussion with him is interesting. But Broner wants 1 more. So I don't think it's going to be Adrian Broner. I really don't. Adrian Broner could be the opponent for, if Conor's going to fight in April, Adrian Broner could be the opponent for like September, potentially. And then again, that one big fight in December. I'm looking forward here. But Adrian Broner is not going to be the opponent for April. The opponent will be Robert Guerrero or Maurice Hooker. So yeah, back to the one I want it to be, Maurice Hooker. I've always said that I think CONOR BENN is a couple of steps behind Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz. The reason I mentioned those is because Virgil Ortiz, 2 fights ago, fought Maurice Hooker. So I think if it's a good enough fight for Maurice Hooker, 2 fights ago, it's a good enough fight for CONOR BENN. That's what I believe anyway. Again, everyone is super high on Virgil Ortiz, like super high. People are crowning him and Boots Ennis the next things at the 147-pound division. Obviously, Virgil Ortiz unbeaten. I think all his wins have come by knockout. So again, if the people that manage Virgil Ortiz think it's okay for him to be in with a guy like Maurice Hooker, who was coming off a defeat to Ramirez, I know he had 1 fight in between that, but it was a gimme fight in order to get the Virgil Ortiz fight. If they think that's good enough for Virgil Ortiz, I think it's good enough for CONOR BENN. Although he's coming off a loss, it wasn't like, if he got flattened by Virgil Ortiz, knocked out like badly, I would have said, it's a bit tricky, but that didn't happen. It was actually a good fight. Maurice Hooker showed me a lot in there. I've always thought that Maurice Hooker was too big for 140, and he must be kidding himself to make it. Look, became world champion at 140, but I think in the Ramirez fight, it showed that maybe the weight cut's just getting a bit too much. So I think that jump to 147 is a good one. He's still live. There isn't that much damage on the body. He's not like he's 40, he's 32, I think, Maurice Hooker. I like it a lot. And it's a step up. It's a clear step up. I don't care what anyone tells me. From Vargas, from Granados, and from Algieri. It is. Again, if you want Conor to go further than that, then I think you might have to rein in how good you think Conor is and the expectations that you have with Conor. I think that's a perfect fight, Maurice Hooker. The next one after that is the one where you then step in your toes into world level territory. So the next one after that, as much as I mentioned Adrian Broner, the next one after that should be an Avianesian Kavialaskas type. That's what I think the next one should be if he comes through Maurice Hooker comfortably. Again, the reason I say this is because for me, he's a couple of fights behind Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz, again, fought Kavialaskas. Although Virgil Ortiz, I think, is going backwards a bit fighting Michael Mickinson, but that's another video. So look, I want it to be Maurice Hooker. I think Maurice Hooker is very, very live. And I think, again, my feelings and expectations for Conor Benn have changed with the Algeria performance. I thought he looked really, really good. And I know people will say, but Algeri's done, and I get all that, but you've got to treat these fighters like they are done. If they're done, and I said this the other day with Travis Strait, if they're done, show me they're done. And he showed me that Algeria was done, the way in which he destroyed him. So, look, I think Maurice Hooker's a great name. I hope it is Maurice Hooker. I don't want it to be Guerrero because I know what people are going to say. And look, Guerrero's 38. I mean, you look at Guerrero's last 4 fights, and then I know he's coming off the back of 4 wins, but who has he fought? I mean, Victor Ortiz is done. Victor Ortiz has been done for a while, so him beating Victor Ortiz means nothing. And it's going to be a difficult... Eddie knows. Eddie's as much as he's a promoter, he's a fight fan as well, and he knows it's going to be difficult to kind of sell that fight. It's difficult because I don't know if that's a step up from Algieri. Do you know? I don't know if it is. I don't know if it's a step up from Vargas. I really don't. I mean, again, look, for the first 4 or 5 rounds, Guerrero is going to be really, really good. He was really, really good against Ortiz. Ortiz was really, really good against Guerrero. But if you watch that fight, the way in which both of those tanks went empty after the halfway stage was, I mean, Jesus, it was bad. So I hope it isn't Guerrero. I do hope it's Maurice Hooker. I think that's a great step-up fight. If I'm honest with you, if I'm brutally honest with you, I think it's maybe a bit too soon for Hooker, but I like it. I think you've got to take these fights. And then after that, if he does come through that, for me, it's got to be Avianesian. It's got to be. It might be difficult to make now with Avianesian being on a different broadcaster, but he's got to do that. And I think he's got the beating of Avianesian. I do. I really do. Like, when are you going to fight Avianesian then? Avianesian's what? I think 35? Let's have a look. So look, 1 sec. 33, apologies. 34 in August. You know what, sometimes I just feel like, as much as it is a risky fight, every fighter has that fight, don't they? Every fighter has that fight where it's like, you know what, we've got to roll the dice with this one. And if you win, it's liftoff. If you don't, you start again. So every fighter has it. AJ kind of had it, you could say, with Klitschko, right? That was that one where it's like, okay, if you win, if you don't, you know, everyone has it. And I think this could be Conor Benn's fight. So again, my dream for Conor in 2022 would be the Maurice Hooker fight. It then, you know, it could even be, I don't know, it could be Maurice Hooker in April. It could be Broner in September. Fun fight, right? Fun fight. Broner could beat Ben. Like, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying Ben comes through Broner. I'm just trying to say, in an ideal world, if you're talking about someone's development, it could be Hooker, Broner, Avianesian at the back end of the year. That's what it could be. And then, as you go into 2023, I think by beating an Avianesian, you're then world level, and no one can dispute it. Like right now, when Conor says he's world level, I'm a big Conor Benn fan. I love everything about him, but I can't defend the argument when he says he's world level. I can't say, yeah, you are, because there is no world level win on your resume. As much as you might think you're world level, you've got to have a world level win on your resume to kind of then justify that statement. He doesn't have that. So that little run I've just mentioned there, no one at the back end of that run is going to tell me he's not world level. No one, because I think Avanesyan's a top 10 welterweight, and I think that could be a good send-off for 2022. But look, I'm really excited about Conor Benn, really excited to what he can do. Again, I hope it's not Guerrero. I really do. Just because that's a difficult sell, man. That's a difficult sell. And that tells me that they're still not convinced yet. They're not sure. So that then puts question marks in my head as to how good they think Conor is if you're going for a Guerrero type or a Guerrero. Maurice Hooker tells me you're sure. Again, you're talking about a world champion, 140 pounds. You're talking about the only two people to have beaten him were Ramirez and Virgil Ortiz. No shame in those losses. Ramirez last fought for an undisputed belt against Josh Taylor. And Virgil Ortiz, again, is the second coming of who knows at 147 pounds. So no shame in that at all. All right, guys, should we quickly see if there's any stories before we wrap now that we're here? Amir Khan on choosing Sky over DAZN. I want more eyes, more viewership. Okay, that's interesting. Amir Khan's been with Sky for years. Most of his fights, especially over here, have been on Sky, so he's got that relationship with them. So it makes sense. Look, we never know what's going to happen with DAZN. I mean, there is this talk about buying BT Sports for 800 million. Reuters have said that deal is fast closing. I wonder what's going to happen with Frank. And exciting for me, obviously, because I do stuff with DAZN, but I wonder how this one plays out in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. But look, I mean, Amir Khan, I think DAZN have missed the trick. I think Eddie's missed the trick with that one as well. I don't think they expected it. Like, I don't think they expected it to be this big. I feel like Khan Brook feels really big. Like, it's a really, really big fight. I don't know if they expected that. Obviously, it sold out the arena in hours, didn't it? So it's a big, big fight. People are still interested in it. And Eddie must be so upset because, you know, Eddie's obviously had Kel for a few years, well, a lot of years. He signed Amir Khan. The idea was Amir Khan, Kel, and now he has neither of them and they're both fighting on Sky. So, yeah, it must be annoying. Ryan Garcia rates his lightweight rivals. He puts Lomachenko at #1 and Kambosos at #2. Yeah, I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. It's difficult not to have Kambosos that high. There'll be some people that are like, no, Haney's higher than Kambosos and Gervonta Davis. I mean, Kambosos just beat Teofimo Lopez. Let's give him his respect. Let's give him his respect. I think people are still sleeping on Kambosos for some reason. He's just beaten Teofimo. It wasn't a smash and grab. You know, it wasn't like he got, you know, a fluky knockout, you know, eyes closed punch. No. He beat him up. Really, really good boxing clinic that was. And Loma's just great. So I'd always have Loma as #1. I really would. So for me, yeah, no problem with that. Let's see what Ryan's going to do. There is this Isaac Cruz fight that's supposed to be on the table. Isaac Cruz supposedly hasn't signed. When a fighter like Isaac Cruz doesn't sign to fight Ryan Garcia, I'll tell you now, he's not scared of Ryan Garcia. Stop that nonsense. I saw something from Oscar talking about this. I'm like, stop it. He just fought Gervonta Davis, gave Gervonta Davis a really good fight. I think he's scared of Ryan. He hasn't signed the contract because the numbers aren't right. The numbers aren't right. That's why he's not signed the contract. So a lot of people have been saying things like, oh, is he ducking Ryan Garcia? Ain't gonna happen. I spoke about this. I've spoken about this a lot. I've spoken about this yesterday. I've spoken about it the other day as well. Spence Crawford, unviable because of economics. Crawford, not a pay-per-view star, says PBC spokesperson. Jeez. Crawford's in a weird position now. Like, it's got to the stage where I feel like I never would have expected it, but I feel like there could be a chance of Crawford signing with DAZN and doing stuff there, or with Eddie sort of managing him. Be interesting to see. The reason I say this because, I mean, obviously we know what's going on with Top Rank. We done the video earlier. There's no point talking about that. I mean, surely you're not signing with PBC after they're saying things like you're not a star and, you know, who are you going to go with? I mean, does he have fights on Triller? I mean, what does he do? And the next one, obviously, would be Matchroom and DAZN, or maybe Golden Boy and DAZN. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Shame. It's really not good, is it? Really not good. Bob Arum, in the news a lot recently, says if White wants Fury fight and stops messing around, he can get a good payday. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, White's not happy with the 80-20 split. But the maximum he could have got was 45. Obviously, Fury getting the 55. I do wonder what's going to happen here. Obviously, the purse bids have been pushed back to next week. And by the way, look, even if it's a purse bid, you still get 80-20. If that's what's ruled, it's ruled. But the 20 could be a lot bigger than the 20 now, with the current figures kind of being floated around. I mean, he's probably hoping for a 70-30, and then it might not go to purse bids. But we'll see how this one plays out. Eddie spoke about this on that Kugan Cassius interview, didn't he, as well? So we'll see how it plays out. I do think we are going to see Fury versus White, which I think is fascinating. I love it. I love the whole idea of it, the whole build-up. It's going to be really, really good. It's a massive fight over here. Say what you want. I mean, there'll be some American viewers that maybe will watch this and be like, oh, it's not a big fight. No, no, no. I'm telling you now, Mr. and Mrs. American viewers, Dillian White, sorry, let me get it right. Tyson Fury versus Dillian White over here is gigantic. It really is gigantic. And yeah, one I really, really look forward to. And because it is that big, I think Dillian White deserves to get at least 30. I mean, come on, man. At least 30. Pay the man. Pay the man. A bit here about Rigondeaux, or Rigondeaux, some people say, versus Astrolabio. Never heard of him. It's in play for February 26th in Dubai. It's just not worked, is it, for Rigondeaux? Unfortunately, it's just not worked at all. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. All right, guys, I think that is it. This is a short and sweet video. Let's have a little look and see if there's anything on Mike Coppinger's Twitter page, because I'm not quite sure when we're filming again. Let's see what Mike has got to say. 2 secs. I love having my laptop here. I'm trying to think. I used to film without my laptop when I was in the house. Jeez, I don't know how I did that. Nothing. Bear in mind, I'm filming this at 2 o'clock. I don't know where he is in the States, but he might still be asleep. So we expect to get some stuff from him later on. All right, guys, have a good day. Peace.